This video is not a detailed review of the Smith & Wesson 469 9mm. It's more of a discussion of some of its features and characteristics, which I don't generally see in other detailed videos. There's some things I want to mention in case you're interested in getting one of these guns. It might help you make a decision. The gun is a 9mm semi-auto factory 12-round magazine. That's one of the things I want to talk about because this is a factory magazine, 12 rounds. The gun was, of course, the gun is not loaded here. The gun was manufactured 1983 to 1988. And they marketed the gun as the Mini, but Mini in relation to the larger full-size 9mm that were intended for law enforcement. This gun is shorter slide, shorter height by maybe a half inch in each direction, but it has a fairly high capacity of 12 rounds, where the duty guns are like 14 or 15 rounds. So they felt that it was okay for duty, concealed carry, backup gun, these different applications. In today's world of micro nines, this gun is huge compared to the really tiny 9mm that are out there. But anyhow, it suited my needs. I got the gun. I'm real happy with it. But again, I want to tell you about some things that you should know. First, as I said, the magazine, the standard Smith & Wesson magazine is 12 rounds. I found on auction website a magazine intended for this gun. This is just a bullet in brass, no primer, no powder. That's what all these bullets are, or cartridges are, for testing only. I have the same thing for different calibers. This is a 45 230 grain ball in the brass, no primer, no powder. I use this for test and evaluation of magazines, cycling the gun, these different things that we all go through. Anyhow, I saw a Ramline magazine for the Smith 469, 15 rounds. I said, wait a minute, how do you get 15 rounds in a 12-round magazine? They're almost identical in size. The Ramline is about maybe 1/8 of an inch longer. I said, that's not going to account for 3 rounds. How do you get 3 extra rounds in that magazine? So I started some research, and I found that the Ramline in this time period, in the 1980s, instead of using the traditional coil spring that pushes the follower up, they have a spring that's riveted to the frame, the magazine body, and it coils up into a coil inside the follower. So when the rounds are loaded and the follower is pushed down, I have another one here, and the follower is pushed down, that spring unwinds and comes straight down. You can see it here. It's unwound inside the follower. And because there's no spring like the traditional magazine, the bottom plate just is mostly a dust cover. You don't even need it, but I'm not saying don't use it, but it doesn't hold the spring in place. So when I saw this thing, I bought the magazine. I did not buy the gun. I bought the magazine. I said, I want to be convinced that this thing actually works. So I got one. I loaded it up. I cycled the cartridges with my thumb, and sure enough, they all popped out as this thing wound up. Now, when it unwinds, or I should say when it winds, it's not pushing, it's pulling. The spring is pulling the follower up and putting the rounds in position to be chambered. I said, well, this is pretty cool. So based on that, I went out and I bought the gun. So now I got the gun. It came with two Smith & Wesson 12-round magazines. I since got a second Ramline magazine with 15 rounds. Now these magazines are not, they're no longer in production. You may or may not find them. If you want a 15-round magazine, you better jump on it. You better pay whatever price, because you won't just buy them. So that's an important consideration. It's one of the reasons I got the gun. I can carry it with 15 plus 1 as opposed to 12 plus 1. Okay, another thing I want to mention is this is a factory installed millet sight, adjustable for windage and elevation. The front ramp is painted, factory painted, kind of a yellow orangish color. Nice sight, adjust it any way you want. But the problem is it extends up pretty high off the slide, and this corner, if you're right-handed in your holster, digs into my side. It's not all the time. It just depends on body motion, sitting in a car, doing different things. It's just an irritation. Not a deal breaker, but I actually wish I had the fixed sights on it. Now I make my own holsters. This gun here is a Taurus PT 945. I made the holster, fits right in. I have it molded to the shape of the gun, and I can very easily make a holster for this gun and add some leather up here to cover this so it doesn't hit me. I haven't done it yet, but I will one of these days. I'm going to talk more about this gun here in a minute. It's a latest project that I've been working on. So we got the magazine, we got the sight, the grip panels. The standard factory grip panels are much thinner than this Pachmayr. This is a Pachmayr wraparound grip. The original panels are very smooth, very slippery. And that was probably done intentionally so that if this thing is carried in a holster on the hip or whatever, it won't drag on clothing. So that's a benefit, I guess, to that slippery plastic. But I don't like it. So I bought the Pachmayr wraparound grip. It fits very snugly. There isn't any loose ends. I mean, I can pull it, but everything fits tight. The back strap actually snaps it into place back and along this edge here. Now this back strap supports the stirrup. They call it a stirrup. It's basically a rod. The mainspring is in the center of it, and it pushes the hammer forward when the gun is fired. But that thing is positioned inside here. In fact, you can see it right down here. So this plastic backstrap is part of the spring assembly. Pachmayr makes a grip that includes a rubber backstrap, and it doesn't wrap around. You have to force it on. I've seen them on YouTube. I have not seen them for sale on an auction website. If I do, I probably won't get one because, frankly, I don't have any problem with the plastic backstrap. I'm okay with it. I don't see any reason to replace it with a rubber backstrap. But obviously, the Pachmayr adds bulk, adds width to the grip. It gives me a good purchase. It doesn't slip like the plastic one does, but I have this type of wraparound grip on other guns, and I'm pretty much used to it, so I'm kind of neutral on it. Okay, another feature of the gun I never see mentioned is the fact that it's got a loaded chamber indicator. In this area between the slide and the receiver, there's an open space, and if there's a round in the chamber, you can see the brass. Some guns, many guns, have a hole where you look down, and you can, on top of the slide, you look down and you can see the brass. But this one, it's on the side. Fortunately, and probably done intentionally, they beveled the slide right at that junction. So when it's beveled, I don't have to go like this to see if there's a round. I can just look down and see. I can see the brass here. So that's a nice feature. I like to know my gun is loaded. Okay, so we have the grip, the sight, the loaded chamber indicator. Now I want to break this thing down because I want to talk about the. Oh wait, before I do that, this gun has. Let's talk about the safety. Now again, this is not a loaded gun. I should put a magazine in so I could. 12-round magazine. The safety is the decocker safety. Push it down, decocks the hammer. Hammer goes down. There's no spring tension. The gun cannot possibly fire unless you pull the trigger. It has a safety plunger for the firing pin, safety plunger in the slide, like all these new polymer striker fire guns. And the only way that plunger gets pushed out of the way is when you pull the trigger. And when the magazine's in, the safety decocks the hammer. It's got a trigger, free trigger feature that it can't engage. All right, now, if I put the safety off, now I can fire the first round in double action, the entire throw, double action. Or I can go, I don't want to say half cock because it's really not, it's probably quarter cock. If I do that, then you still fire in double action, but the throw here is free travel till you get to the wall, pull it back, and she fires. All right. You can carry the gun this way. It's actually quite safe. It's just that you have to pull the trigger for the gun to fire. Now, if you have it in this condition, you can fire in single action, pull the hammer back. It's serrated. It's a bob hammer, again, for concealment. Doesn't have a spur hammer, so you can pull it back. Now you're in single action mode. The trigger is almost all the way to the wall. You just barely touch it, and the gun fires. Again, it's safe. You have to pull the trigger to fire the gun. Me personally, I like to decock it, even leave the safety on, throw it back off, pull the trigger, the gun fires. Okay, let's take this thing apart. Pretty traditional. Get this magazine out. Bring it back so the notch is over the slide stop. Push that through. Pull it out, put the gun aside. Take the barrel out. I want to talk about the chambering of the actual rounds, but before I do that, I want to mention that recoil spring guide rod. This is a flange here. And in this particular gun, when you reassemble it, this has to go right in this channel that's machined out. There's a little bit of a bevel here. And if you don't hit it just right, and if this thing is off by the slightest amount, that flange is going to hit the side, and it's going to be a bear to get it back in. It usually takes me 3 or 4 times attempts to actually get this thing to line up. What I might do is to smooth this out, bevel it, smooth it so it's polished. Do the same thing on this side of the flange, smooth it, and maybe touch it up with some grease to help it slide in, just make it easier. Okay, we'll reassemble that here in a minute. Okay, I do my own loading. This is a 124 grain Spear Gold Dot, very popular around law enforcement, great expansion, all kinds of nice characteristics. I'm going to take it, I'm going to drop it in. Look at that, comes right out. I'm not forcing it, comes right out. This bullet is a RMR, that's Rocky Mountain Reloading. They call it the MPR, multi-purpose round. It's also 124 grains, but it's shorter. It's short. These are the actual bullets. This is the gold dot. This is the RMR. You probably can't see it on the camera, but I can see it visually here. But it's shorter and fatter. It's fatter up here in the ogive area, which is the arc of the bullet. All right, now let's take that bullet, drop it in. Oh, look at this. It hits the lands. Let's try it again. I'm not forcing it. I'm just, oh, missed it. Dropping it in. It stays in. What's happening is, I'm going to show you, I've got some, let me show you the diagram here. The Spear Gold Dot is long and skinny. The MPR is short and fat. And what happens is, this is the chamber, this is the barrel, and the bullet hits the lands and stops going in any further. Now, why is that a problem? It's a problem because, first of all, if this cartridge is in there, the gun should fire. It should fire. It may not, because if this thing is back any amount, just the slightest amount, it might, not always, but it might stop the, let me do it this way. It might stop the slide from going in the battery. It's in battery when these two are touching. And if they're not in battery, if it's just back just a little bit, you have to take your finger and push it to get it in battery so that the firing pin will hit the primer and go deep enough in the primer to cause ignition. That's the problem. The gun may not fire. If it hits the land and you still are close here, the gun will fire. But I don't like the idea of being at the range and having to push in the slide, push in the slide every time. That doesn't work. So what's the solution? Here's the solution. Two solutions. Solution number one, don't use short, fat bullets. Okay? Use long, skinny bullets. Solution number two is seat the bullet deeper when you're reloading. Seat the bullet deeper. However, when you seat the bullet deeper, you're going to increase the pressure. You can get in trouble by overpressuring the gun. And we don't want that either. So now there's two ways to get around that. One is, if you're loading to maximum charge, don't load to maximum. For example, I'm just making this up. If maximum charge is, say, 5 grains of whatever powder, load it to, say, 4.5 grains. Because if you seat this deeper so the bullet does not hit the lands, pressure goes up. It might go up into the range of maximum charge of, like, say, 5 grains. I don't know that for a fact. I have no way of measuring it, but at least it puts you in the ballpark. Another solution, which is what I do, is I go through my inventory of powders and I find the powder from published data that seats the bullet deeper. And Hodgkin HS6, which is a high energy powder, seats the bullet 9mm, 124 grain Sierra Full Metal Jacket. Now, this is not a Sierra Full Metal Jacket, but it's almost identical in size. It says the cartridge overall length, COL, 1.09 inches. So if I seat this at 1.09 inches, like this one here, MPR bullet comes right out. So I have it set deeper, and I can still load it to maximum charge according to this powder by using 1.09 inches. That's what I do. Okay. So keep that in mind. You say, well, the gun doesn't work, I got to do this. That might very well be the problem. Type of bullet that's being used. And we talk about guns liking a certain ammunition. That's what they're talking about. Okay, now let's put this thing back together. I'll show you the difficulty. Of course, it's going to make a lyre. I mean, that's the way it works. It'll probably go in just perfectly without any issues. All right, we got the barrel in place. We got the recoil spring. We got the guide rod. You look at it and say, well, it's really centered. Looks okay to me. But there's a little bit of motion here. When we put this thing in, we got that flange has got to fit perfectly in here. And if it's off the slightest amount, it won't go in. Push down on the ejector. Push down on the plunger safety. This is what, when you fire the gun, the trigger pushes that up. And there's a third, call it lever. That's the serial release, and I'm pushing this direction. Trying to get the slide to go down. There it goes. See? Didn't make a lyre on me. Went right in. Okay, now let's put the slide stop back in. Push the barrel back in. Get that out of the way so the slide stop goes in. There. Now we got it back together. Empty magazine. Now if we had live ammo in that magazine, if we had a live ammo, we have a round chambered, decock it, trigger is disabled, take the safety off, first round is double action, half cock it, first round, double action but less throw, or first round, single action, boom. This is a real nice gun. This is a real nice gun, and I carry it very frequently. Okay, that's what I wanted to mention. These 5 items. The grip, the sight, loaded chamber indicator, the shape of the bullet hitting the lands, and the ram line magazine, 15 rounds. 15 round magazine. That's a big plus. 15 rounds and fairly small. And by the way, this is an alloy frame, so forth. Okay, my next project. My next project is, I really, really like this gun. This is a Taurus PT 945 single stack 45. I got lots of 45s. I carry 45s very frequently. Just depends on what mood I'm in. I bought this gun with a blue slide, and I located a stainless slide. It's actually a parts kit. The slide release, the slide stop, the trigger bar. I replaced all these parts. I polished them, and I don't know how well it's showing in the video, but this is really bright. It's just absolutely spectacular. I just love this gun. I have other 45s. I got polymers. I got 1911. I got all that stuff. But this is really a nice gun. Alloy frame. And it just looks good. I put on a wood grip. Nice feel to it. All things considered, it's a really nice gun. And Taurus, it seems like they're out of the 45 market. They're just making 9mm. Maybe 40 Smith & Wesson. I don't know. So anyhow, that's I just want to show this off. I'm real proud of it. So anyhow, getting back to the Smith & Wesson. I hope I gave you some information, some insights to the gun. Help you decide if you want to get one. There's your going for $400 to $500. I got this really cheap, $330. Nobody bid on it. It was rebid, reposted, same price, $330. And I waited till the last minute, and I was the only person to bid on it, and I got it. I don't know why. I just don't know why, but I really scored. I really scored getting this gun at this price. Okay, that's it. Hope you learned something. I hope you might have more information that you can consider getting one of these. It's highly recommended. Okay, bye-bye.